When I say the word hero, who comes to mind? Anyone? Right now, you're probably thinking about a superhero. Something about this music. It's written by American composer John Williams. Something just sounds like Superman. You probably know more superheroes, and you probably know other heroes from storybooks and action-adventure movies. But real heroes are all around us. Real people in the real world whose accomplishments have resulted in even one person viewing him or her as a hero. When you attend the National Symphony Orchestra's Young People's Concert, Summon the Heroes, you'll be introduced to all kinds of heroes, and you'll hear how composers throughout the ages have tackled the challenge of celebrating those heroes and honoring their achievements with music. The Olympics are an excellent example. Composer John Williams wrote this theme, Summon the Heroes, for the 1996 Olympic Games in Atlanta, Georgia. Notice how the music announces, loud and clear, that heroes have arrived. There's nothing ordinary about this music. Somehow, working without words, the composer was able to craft music that communicates great, powerful, heroic athletes have arrived on the field. The Olympics are decided by gold medals, but it's up to people to decide whether someone qualifies as a hero. And that recognition may come during one's life or after their death. And anybody can choose their own heroes. You might think of heroes in your own family or in your community. Firefighters or police officers or doctors, or maybe even a teacher. An everyday hero who has affected your life in a positive way. The music we're listening to, the Nimrod section of British composer Edward Elgar's Enigma Variations, was written to honor a close friend who had offered him encouragement when Elgar was ready to quit composing. Good friends can be heroes too. And the music that celebrates a hero doesn't have to be a happy, rousing march. Elgar's music isn't happy or sad, exactly, but more bittersweet or full of mixed emotion. Just as music allows us to cheer for our heroes, it also helps us to reflect on courage and the remarkable journey of heroes. Soldiers, for example, who lost their lives in battle, or soldiers fighting in wars right now. Music helps us to connect with our emotions as we consider our gratitude and our appreciation. During the NSO's Young People's Concert, we'll hear thrilling marches and fanfares, and more thoughtful music. Along the way, we'll also learn about the tools, or elements of music, a composer can use to make the music so expressive. Although each selection on our concert program will sound different, each composer is working with the same basic set of tools. Now you might be wondering what a composer does. A composer is an artist who writes or composes music. Composers often first work with melody, the order of notes played at a different time in a piece of music. When composers write a melody, they all use two basic tools to lay down the tune. One tool is pitch, and the other tool is rhythm. Once the melody is written, a composer might use other tools to make his melody unlike any other. One tool might be the musical dynamics, where the music is loud or soft, or any degree in between. Composers might also decide to change the tone of their tune by switching it from a major key to a minor key, or to adjust the tempo to make the music fast or slow or something in between. and they will also decide which instruments in the orchestra will carry the melody. All of these choices make a composer's work vibrant, powerful, and uniquely his or her own. To get to know these tools, let's say that pitch means whether a note is high or low, the up and down roller coaster of notes. Rhythm is the long and short pattern of these notes. Tempo is the speed of the music, whether the music is fast or slow or somewhere in between. Dynamics refers to volume, whether the music is loud or soft. Instrumentation refers to how the four sections of instruments, the brass, the strings, the woodwinds, and the percussion, are combined and used in a piece. But more on that later. We'll revisit these ideas while we greet the parade of heroes. But for now, let's settle into our seats and get ready to listen to What's that? Up in the sky. It's a bird, it's a plane, it's Superman! When composer John Williams composed his theme for Superman, he tried to describe the precise moment when Superman flies across the sky, recreating how it feels to leap tall buildings and soar among the clouds. Williams' Superman theme is a terrific opportunity to listen for the pitch in music. Pitch, you will remember, is the high-low relationship, or the up and down roller coaster of notes. To get from one note to another, a composer might take a simple step up or down, or maybe a greater leap from a low note to a high note, or a high note to a low note. There are also half steps between the notes, so in reality, a composer can use high notes, low notes, and any number of middle notes in between. As you listen to Williams' Superman theme, you will hear the composer take leaps, steps, and half steps between notes. In fact, Williams uses pitch to leap tall buildings. Did you hear the melody leaping from low notes to high notes, and stepping and skipping among the notes in the middle? Let's listen to that much again. And this time, let's play a game. Stretch your hands in front of you like Superman flying through the clouds. If we all do it together, it'll be fun. Or if you want, simply point into the sky and let your hand follow Superman's flight. When you hear lower notes, let your hands remain on a low level. As the melody reaches for high notes, allow your hands to lift higher in steps until you reach the highest note of all. On the notes in the middle, the notes between the high notes and the low notes, you can let your hands bounce over the clouds. Here comes Superman again. Hands up! Listen to Williams and get ready for those high notes and low notes and notes in the middle. Pitch. A composer works with another tool to write a melody, rhythm. Rhythm refers to the long and short of the notes. Most music sticks to a beat, the steady pattern that drives the melody forward. When you clap to music, you clap to the beat. The rhythm of the melody happens on top of the beat and either breaks the steady pattern or marches right on it. Here, the Superman music marches to a fairly strong, steady beat. The rhythm of the melody is in the long and short notes that sit on top of that beat. Let's divide the group into two halves. As we listen once more to Superman, the right side of the room will clap to the marching beat. The left side of the room will clap along with the long, short rhythm of the melody. As soon as the music starts, the right side should begin clapping to the steady march. As soon as the horns and trumpets arrive with the melody, the left side will try to clap out that tricky rhythm. Ready? Here we go. Earlier that a composer chooses which instruments carry the melody in a work. There are lots of choices a composer can make, especially with an orchestra. The instruments of the orchestra are divided into 4 different sections. The brass section contains all the trumpets and horns. The string section provides all the violins, violas, cellos, and basses. The woodwind section holds all the flutes, oboes, clarinets, and bassoons. And the percussion section contains all the drums, cymbals, chimes, and whistles. Each section has a different sound and feel, which explains why a composer might choose one instrument over another. The string section, for example, is often thought to express the human spirit in all its compassion, fragility, and warmth. German composer Ludwig van Beethoven's 7th Symphony contains a funeral march for fallen soldiers. It has become one of the most treasured works in classical music. It might sound odd for a funeral march to be so popular, but when you listen to the work, you might understand why audiences have responded so enthusiastically to the stirring, powerful presence of the string section. Listen here for the violins, violas, cellos, and basses. work was first heard, the audience leapt to its feet, demanding an instant encore. We're going to have an encore right now, and this time, listen as the woodwinds pick up the melody, supported by the strings. The brass section, with its horns and trumpets, and the percussion section, with its drums and cymbals, are usually called into service for a fanfare. Horns, trumpets, and other brass instruments have a bright sound associated with courage, and drums have a bold sound that suggests power and strength. At the beginning of World War II, American composer Aaron Copland was asked to write music that would fire up the American people as they entered the war effort. Copland composed a fanfare for the common man, because, as he said, it was the common man, after all, who was doing all the dirty work in the war. He deserved a fanfare. The work has become a favorite with American audiences. Let's listen. And notice how Copland has composed the music as a conversation passing back and forth between the brass and the percussion. Heroes often become role models. People will copy the way their heroes dress or play basketball, or maybe the way their heroes think. The same thing happens to composers. When John Williams was asked to create a fanfare for the Olympic athletes, he took his inspiration from Aaron Copland's Fanfare for the Common Man. We're going to listen to Copland's fanfare back to back with Williams' Summon the Heroes, and compare and contrast the two works. First, let's listen for qualities they have in common, things that are the same. Remember the composer's toolbox, and listen for decisions the composers made in terms of pitch, rhythm, dynamics, tempo, and instrumentation. Here's the Copland. And now, Williams' Summon the Heroes. exactly the same, but there are similarities. Do you want to hear them again? First, Copland. And now, Williams. Did you hear the similarities? Both selections use the same conversational back and forth, or call and response, between brass instruments, here horns and trumpets, and the percussion. Both works also use similar patterns of 3 notes, heading up and down the roller coaster. Anything else? Let's listen one more time, and this time, listen for the differences. Here's the Copland. And then the Williams. One thing you might have heard is a notable difference in the tempo. Copland's Fanfare is slower and statelier than Williams' lively, upbeat work. You might also notice that Copland's Fanfare sounds far away and distant, as though the drums and horns are echoing from the distant hills. Williams' Summon the Heroes sounds like it's right on top of us, not far away at all. Notice that even though these composers are both working with the same tools and the same general ideas, they still came up with 2 works that have separate and distinct identities. As the United States entered World War II, composer Aaron Copland was asked to write a musical portrait of a great American, someone who might inspire people to step up to the challenge of the war. He chose to write Lincoln Portrait, based on the life of Abraham Lincoln, our 16th president. Abraham Lincoln rose from humble beginnings to the highest office in the land. He held our nation together despite a difficult civil war. As president, he championed the end of slavery and helped to secure the America we know today. To paint a musical portrait of Lincoln, Copland combined music with statements Lincoln made during his lifetime, so that it sounds like we're sitting down with President Lincoln himself. When Copland wrote music to wrap around Lincoln's words, he was less concerned with patriotic fanfare than he was with creating music that would allow the words to be heard. In this selection from Lincoln Portrait, the narration is recited by James Earl Jones, an actor whose famous voice you might recognize from his work on Star Wars and The Lion King.
Fellow citizens, we cannot escape history. That is what he said. That is what Abraham Lincoln said. Fellow citizens, we cannot escape history. We of this Congress and this administration will be remembered in spite of ourselves. No personal significance or insignificance can spare one or another of us. The fiery trial through which we pass will light us down in honor or dishonor to the latest generation. We, even we here, hold the power and bear the responsibility.
American composer George Walker is the first African-American composer to win the Pulitzer Prize for Music, a heroic accomplishment for any composer. Early in his career, Walker turned to a hero in his own life as inspiration for one of his best-known works, Lyric for Strings, which he dedicated to the memory of his grandmother. Walker chose the string section to convey the right mood for his work, and he also wrote in a minor key. Let's listen. Composers sometimes work in a minor key when they want to create something solemn or serious. A lot of music stays in the major key, but by shifting one note in the musical scale down by a half step, the composer can change the tone from bright and positive to something more somber. That difference can be heard quite clearly in Walker's work, because there's a moment when the melody shifts from major to minor. Let's listen to that again. Before we end our visit to the Gallery of Heroes, let's play one last game. We'll play an excerpt from the Summon the Heroes program, and you tell us who the hero was, if you happen to know, and how the composer was showing his idea about heroes. It might have been a celebration, or a more thoughtful reflection on heroes. To remind you, we listened to several selections you will hear at the National Symphony Orchestra's Young People's Concert. American composer John Williams wrote a thrilling theme for Superman's flight. German composer Ludwig van Beethoven wrote a moving funeral march for fallen soldiers. British composer Edward Elgar wrote a stirring remembrance to his lifelong friend. And American composer Aaron Copland sat down with the late President Abraham Lincoln. We'll play an excerpt, and you say what it's about. Here's the first selection. Elgar's Nimrod, of course! This stirring work was written to honor Elgar's lifelong friend and remains a favorite among the people of England. Here's our second selection.
Fellow citizens, we cannot escape history. That is what he said. That is what Abraham Lincoln said. Fellow citizens, we cannot escape history. We of this Congress and this administration will be remembered in spite of ourselves.
It was Abraham Lincoln who gave it away. Yes, that was Aaron Copland's Lincoln Portrait. Remember how the music was intended to focus on Lincoln's spoken words? And now our next selection. This time, it was the warm, stirring strings that gave it away. Yes, that was Beethoven's much-loved Funeral March. And finally... Did you think we'd finish without letting you wave goodbye to Superman? Did you recognize him from the long notes, short notes, high notes, low notes, the tempo, and the bright major key? The Kennedy Center is a living memorial to another national hero, President John F. Kennedy. So be sure to learn about his story before you come to visit us. We look forward to seeing you at the National Symphony Orchestra's Young People's Concert. Summon the Heroes!